Hey guys, welcome to the second edition of Art Tea Time. I went to record that video even though I've just come out of the gym. As you can see, I'm still in my gym clothes. I look a bit messy. My makeup is all over the place. I have a patch there for my pimple that you might see from afar. But that's not important, because what is important, what matters, is what I'm about to talk about in that video. And today's topic is the winged Victory of Samothrace. Like the first video about tea time, I'll obviously talk about the work of art that I've chosen. I'll talk about my choices, and I'll tell you a bit more about all the context around the creation of the work of art, and I'll also give you some historical contexts, as well as some architectural context, I guess. We'll see how that work of art has inspired many people and how it has fascinated people even. So as I said, today's focus will be on the winged Victory of Samothrace, or we call it the winged Victory for short. It's a statue that is exhibited in the Museum of Louvre, in the Musée du Louvre in Paris, even though it's a Greek work of art, and perhaps it should be exhibited in Greece, but that's another discussion. It's a sculpture that was approximately done in the 2nd century before Christ, and the winged statue is supposedly representing Nike, who is the goddess of victory, and she's set on the base, and it's just actually part of the base she was on, but I'll go into details later a bit more. Now, as for the tea of the day, it's not a hot tea because it's very hot here. It's a cold tea, a nice, not nice tea because there's no ice in it. It's just plain water with the tea that I've been infusing in the past minutes. It's a tea that's called Summer Nights. I forgot to check the brand of the tea, but I think that it was from Daman, frère. I'll insert the name of the brand on the screen. I'll check it up later. In winter, when I tried to drink it hot, the water turned out like almost opaque red. It was impossible to see through almost, and the taste of it was almost too strong for me, too fruity and too intense. So yeah, ever since then I've told myself that I have to drink that tea cold or iced, and that's what I've done in the past weeks. It's still a bit reddish, but it's less opaque than when it's infused hot. And we can still taste the fruity notes like the strawberry and the other red berries notes in it. Let's start with why have I chosen that statue as today's focus. Well, you know my absolute passion and love for anything Greek and anything about Greek mythology. Even the first video was about Venus, who is a Greco-Roman goddess. So of course one of the other works of art that I am passionate about is something that's depicting a mythological figure. Of course, paintings and statues are quite different, because usually in paintings the mythological figure is sometimes can be alone, but most of the time is surrounded by a decor, by other people, and the background is very important as well. it's a whole scene, whereas when it comes to statues, most of the time it's only like the goddess or god that is sculpted in his or her most simplistic manner. Most of the time the god or goddess is naked or wears a piece of fabric or like a sort of clothing from the era. Sometimes the god or goddess that is depicted holds something that is associated with the person, like, you know, Diane is the goddess of hunting and of many other symbolic things, and she usually is sculpted with a bow, and she is also sculpted with a deer. I think that, yeah, it's a deer. No, it is the deer male or female? I don't know. There's a statue of Diane in the Louvre that is done that way with the animal, and she has a bow and she's wearing a sort of old clothing from the time. It was usually in ancient Greek times to sculpt or paint, but mostly to sculpt goddesses or gods that they prayed for, and that they what's the word? I have the word in French but not in English. It was like a way to pay homage to them and to show their respect and their love. So there were plenty and plenty of sculptures done in ancient Greece that were like an offer to gods and goddesses, and that were displayed in temples and in other spiritual places. I'm just brushing the surface of it all, but you can look into ancient Greece arts if you want to. Now back to my explanation. The first time that I've seen that statue in real life was when I was on a solo trip in Paris in 2022, in the beginning of the year, and I went to the museum twice because I really liked walking through the Greek statues and Greco-Roman statues and statues of that sort. I'm fascinated by how precise and how realistic they look sometimes. You know, I said that I went there twice. That was not only to just look at the sculptures again and the paintings again. That was also to act like the main character and try to draw the sculptures I was looking at. I think that I have some examples to show you in that book, actually, in that notebook. I basically just sat there and I tried to doodle the sculptures. I'm not very good at drawing. I mean, I have some hidden talents, and I have a hint of talent somewhere in me, but I don't really work on that talent much. This is an example of what I doodled. It's the lady that is naked and holding the lamp or something. It's an allegory of the truth. It was part of the academic arts. Are you surprised? I don't think you are. Then, I'm not very proud of that one. It's the chest bust of the Venus of Milo, the Milo Venus. I'm not very good at shading the drawings. The last one that I've done was based on not by another Greek statue, but it was not a god or something, any specific god. It was just like a dude. It's a bit better drawn than the Venus just before. That's when I saw the statue for the first time and the whole sculptures. It was very ominous, because if you don't know where it's put in the museum, it's basically at the top of a staircase and it's the only thing that stands there. It's massive because it's standing on its base. If I remember well, I have the numbers here, but I'll tell them to you later more specifically. The whole thing measures like 5 meters, more than 5 meters. So that's very tall and large as well. It does such an impression on you because, you know, you're arriving at the bottom of the stairs and you lift your head up a bit and all you see is that massive statue, that massive sculpture with the base, and you're flabbergasted. I feel like you're either impressed and flabbergasted for life, or you couldn't care less about the statue and about the sculpture. But I feel like more generally people take time to look at the statue and it does a very heavy impression on most people. There was a lady who was sitting next to it and she was doodling it like the main character that she thought she was. I don't know, it's something about the size of it and its grace and the way it's sculpted. She's wearing a sort of drape that is pleated because of the movement that is supposed to happen there, and also there's the fact that it doesn't have a head that contributes to the aura of the sculpture. It's had such an impact on me that after my visit I went to the souvenir shop, the museum, and I bought the miniature version of it. It was quite expensive actually. Here it is. It's an official miniature of the statue, but fortunately enough I don't have the whole base with the miniature because otherwise it'd be too massive to be put on a piece of furniture. It's better this way, just with a very thin base. It's very well done. Of course it's well done because for the price it has to be well done. It's actually very cool because I can see on the left wing the restoration process that they did on the actual statue. Now let's move on to the second part, which will be about what the statue looks like, what it is composed of. As I said, it's a sculpture of Nike, the goddess of victory, and she's winged because that's the way she was usually portrayed, with wings. She's wearing a chiton. She's not naked. A chiton is like an old Greek piece of clothing. On top of the chiton she has an imation, which is a sort of coat from what I understood from my research. There's a lot of movement around here. The clothing looks like it's moving with the movement. I personally thought that the statue was supposed to look like she was walking. That's apparently not the case, and she's landing on the ship because the base is the beak of a naval ship. Apparently the head was never found. Unfortunately, it's said to have been sculpted in the first place with the head, but the head is gone. Perhaps it was stolen or broken into thousands of pieces and impossible to glue together. I don't know, but it's never been found. Both the base and the statue were made with marble. The statue was made with white marble, whereas the base was made with grey marble, apparently. So yeah, she's missing her head, parts of her feet and arms, but somewhere else in the museum you can see remainings of one of the hands. Obviously experts have made many estimations around what she was originally looking like, what the base was looking like, and so on and so on. Many opinions diverge on the appearance of the statue. What was sure though is she was sculpted, Nike was sculpted with the base. She was meant to be on the base, and it's a two-piece sculpture. Now let's move on to the third part, which is about everything from its discovery and when it was discovered and how it was discovered to modern day crucial steps in its history. Was that a correct sentence? Not sure. The statue and its base are by themselves very massive already, but what's exhibited in the Louvre, it's only a part of the base, of the real base. It was said to be even bigger. Yeah, the two-piece work of art was part of a bigger picture. They were found on the island of Samothrace. It's in the north of the Aegean Sea, next to Greece. It's an island on which there was a sanctuary dedicated to gods, to the great gods. Excavations were done very early on in the 19th century. I have the precise date there. First excavations were done in 1863 by a French guy named Charles Champoiseau, who already found several remainings of the statue and its base. At the time, he did not really know what to do with the base. He did not really care about the base, and he did not really know that there was a base with the statue. He just focused on the parts of Nike, and he sent those fragments to France for them to be studied and to be perhaps re-glued together and assembled. That's when most of the statue was eventually restored and glued together. A decade later, Austrian guys went back to the island and they did more excavations. This time they paid interest and attention to the pieces of the base. I mean the pieces of grey marble, which they found to be a base for the statue. Thanks to the design on an old piece of money from the third century before Christ, they were able to draw and imagine a model sculpture of the statue with the base. But as you can see, yeah, Nike was holding a trumpet of some sort, and she has a head and she's on the base. She's on like the naval ship base. So because they started to see that there was much more around the statue that they first expected, there were back and forth, there were back and forth movements to the islands. They did more research and more excavations. There were more steps in the renovation of the statue and of the sculpture. Even though from the very beginning the statue was exhibited in the Louvre, it still went through many steps of alteration, and yeah, it was exhibited in the same place as it is today. It's just the decor that has changed. Until very recently, the sculpture was studied with X-rays, with a UV lamp and stuff, and very other fancy devices, and I do believe that today it's still a focus and an interest for researchers and for specialists. What they have concluded, for instance, is that the statue is in great condition. It did not really suffer from the weather or anything. Otherwise it would have been way more deteriorated. Now let's try to focus a bit on the hypothesis around the first use of the statue, of the sculpture, and where it was and why it was sculpted in the first place, and so on and so on. Historians and archaeologists generally think that the whole sculpture was made as an offering to the great gods that were celebrated on the island of Samothrace. The sculpting coincides with the victory of Rhodes, apparently. Don't know how they know that, but even before the sculpture there were other constructions on the island of Samothrace, and the sanctuary had started to be constructed earlier on. Now there are divergent opinions on what the whole sculpture was facing and why. Some people say that it was facing a torrent that was running on the island. Other people think that the statue was aligned with something more spiritual and it had a more spiritual meaning. Finally, let's talk about the long-lasting fascination that the sculpture has had on everyone, basically. As I said in a previous part, specialists have never really given up on renovating the statue and the whole sculpture. The excavations have been going for a while. They are not giving up. I don't really know if nowadays they're doing excavations anymore, but they were done until very recently for sure. If you remember, I said before that the statue was exhibited from the very beginning at the top of the staircase, like it is still today. At the time, the staircase and the whole room was a bit more packed with decor, and apparently there were gilded mosaics. I should have checked pronunciation of that word. There were things on the walls that were gilded. What do we think that the sculpture has had such an intense impact on a lot of people's minds from very early on? Well, first of all, it's like the only main statue depicting Nike, the goddess of victory, and what a statue, what a sculpture. Her stance is definitely very powerful. She's standing all victorious, obviously. She has open wings, she's landing, apparently. She's gracious, and she's very well sculpted with the impression of movement in her pieces of clothing. The top part of the whole sculpture is by itself very impressive and tall. I have the measurements somewhere. If I remember well, the Nike statue is more than 2 meters tall and is very wide with the wings. With the base, it's 5 meters tall. The assembling of both pieces makes such a dominance and gives such an impression. I'm sure that the whole sculpture has strategically been put there on this Daru staircase. Is that the name of the staircase? Before making research for that video, I already knew that the brand Nike was more or less linked with the goddess Nike. I mean, that's obvious because it's a sportswear brand. It's quite logical to have chosen such a symbolical goddess, a symbolic. Actually, what I didn't know was the logo was also inspired from the statue and from the movement of the wings. You have to picture it. What else? Yeah, Beyonce and Jay-Z sculpture is featured in the music video of Ape. I've not seen the music video yet. I'm not sure that I'm gonna like that song, to be honest. I like OG Beyonce songs, but I'm not very much into her more recent works. Sorry. I read that their music video has had an impact on the visitors of the Louvre, and it definitely boosted the attendance of people in the Louvre. Before that point, in 1929, Nike was chosen as the main design of a trophy for the Football World Cup. In 1978, a bit later on, there was a compilation album of a rock band with Paul McCartney in it. He was one of the dudes in the Beatles, if you don't know him. So they made that compilation album, and the cover of the album is quite inspired by that statue, by the Victory. Honestly, I don't really know what to think about that, but many people say that the famous scene of Titanic with Jack and Rose standing on the beak of the ship, like she's opening arms and stuff, and he's behind her. Many people say that it was also inspired by the statue. Honestly, I think that that hypothesis is going too far. It's a bit far-fetched. What do you think? So that's it for the second edition of RT Time. I hope that today's focus has interested you, and perhaps you didn't know anything about the winged Victory of Samothrace. If that's the case, I'm very glad that you've discovered something today. I have some ideas for the next editions of RT Time and what to focus on for the next research. I'll see you soon in a future video, but in the meantime, I wish you a great day, a great night, and I'll see you soon. Bye.